Randall's directions had been vague, but I followed the strong scent of Mavar to a house by the shore. The door was already unlocked, so I let myself in. Inside, a diverse blend of vampires filled the open space, chatting and laughing over drinks. I noticed Randall in one corner, surrounded by a group, but when our eyes met, he gave me a friendly wave. As I approached Randall and his group, he murmured something quickly to them, then slipped out of the circle. Hey, Valkii, glad you could make it out. This is your first time here, right? How are you liking it so far? It's not what I'd normally associate with vampires, but it's interesting. Yeah, most people don't think of beach bums when it comes to vampires. I mean, nobody wants to read about Dracula having sand in his ass crack, right? Actually, some weirdo out there probably does. He let out a snort of laughter, shaking his head. Well, now that you're here, you got any questions about me or the vamp life? There's no sucking blood for dummies guide out there or anything, but hey, maybe I can help you out somehow. See, about yourself, could you tell me about the Mavar? Well, we probably have some kind of deep, complicated history that I don't know jack shit about. We do get around, though, medieval factions, secret societies, fighting rings, mafia gangs. A lot of what you've read about in textbooks probably had Mavar involved somewhere. He shrugged, his gaze briefly drifting around the living room. As society changes, so do we, so do all vampires. The big difference between us and the rest is, well, beyond enhanced senses and strength and shit, that we're usually always part of a group. Lone Mavar, they're pretty rare. Couldn't really tell you why. Instinct, I guess. A need to be part of something bigger. Sorry, kid. That's about all I got. How do you cope with being a vampire? Cope? You make it sound like it's a shitty life. Ever since I became a vampire, I've never looked back. Best thing that ever happened to me. So I don't cope. I try to enjoy every night. Do you think there's an ideal ruling system for vampires? Yeah, where everybody rules themselves. Of course you're gonna have shitty people doing shitty things, but if they step on someone's toes and there's no law against delivering justice, things work out. Not really, because how do you then define justice? Anyone can just say that this is a killable offense in their mind, because everyone has their own set of rules. And then they can just kill them. That's anarchy. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised. We're vampires. We've all got ways to survive. Somebody can't handle the night, that's not my problem. I have to disagree. The strong should protect the weak. That's your opinion, fine, but I'd rather have somebody learn to protect themselves, and if they can't, just because there are more people being kept alive doesn't mean it's a better society, just a bigger one. You don't know what else those people... He's acting as if... like, being strong in, like, a physical sense, because that's what he's talking about mostly, is more important than anything else. You know, I don't know. I don't agree with him at all. Why do you live on the beach? Isn't it sunny? It's not as bad as you think, actually. I mean, you're not going to catch me getting a tan or anything, and I've got some good shades in my room, but I like being near the ocean. It's big and it doesn't give a fuck. How can you get more inspiring than that? Nah, but more seriously, this place is far enough from Hollywood and downtown LA that the Ascari don't really fuck with us. I want the clan to be able to hang out anywhere in the city, but hey, better to reign in hell than rule in heaven, right? Not that I'd call Hollywood heaven, though. What do you think of Marcus? I haven't known him that long, but I've always looked up to the guy. He just doesn't give a fuck. Well, I guess he sells fucks at a shop, but that's a different story. He's helped me out before too. Never really know why he does a lot of the shit he does, but I don't know. I just like having him around. Will he ever join the rebel side, you think? Hard for me to say. I'm still hoping he will if I keep working on him. The guys in my clan have mixed feelings about Marcus, so he gets a lot of shit from them sometimes. Probably why he hasn't joined us sooner. I don't think that's why. But I think they could warm up to him pretty quick. He just needs to pull out that weird preacher charm on them here. You and Heath. He's everything I hate wrapped up in one baby-faced little package. Weak, can't think for himself, drools over his leader, does everything she asks. You know, these days I barely even see him as a person. Do you really hate Charisse that much? I hate what she stands for. The fact she thinks her leadership is the only thing keeping LA's covenant from eating itself alive. It pisses me off that she acts like vampires have to be protected from themselves because she just doesn't understand that we're not human anymore. I think she understands that perfectly. Queen bitch herself, no, I don't hate her. But I sure as fuck won't be going golfing with her anytime soon, you can count on that. That's all for now. Huh, okay. I'm gonna go back to the group then, but you take care of yourself, Valkii. It's a scary world out there sometimes. Well, if I'm weak, fuck me, I guess, right? With a faint chuckle, Randall nodded at me once, then turned to rejoin the conversation he'd left earlier. Let's mingle with the Mavar. I began drifting between the clusters of Mavar, looking for a conversation to step into. Nobody seemed to know what to make of me, and most of the looks I got were confused, curious, or downright suspicious. For my first impression on them, I decided to act, I don't know, cool and collected. When the Mavar inevitably started asking me questions, I gave them calm, confident answers, giving off the impression that I was in control of my circumstances. As the night went on, none of them really thawed or became affable. Although I got some stilted laughs and the occasional smile might throw my way. Okay, fair enough. By the time I'd spoken with most of the vampires, who seemed willing to chat, I felt like I knew the clan a little better. They were about as diverse a group as any I'd ever seen, and beyond their shared house, there was one thing that united them, their respect for Randall. All of the Mavar obviously admired him, and I heard stories about how he'd helped so-and-so's brother or inspired somebody to ditch their evil boss and become a free spirit. Some of their tales seemed too heroic and exaggerated to be true, but the Mavar obviously believed them. And it seemed like that belief gave them all confidence. Alright, see ya. Slipping out of the beach house, I made my way back across the sand. When I glanced towards the sky, I realized sunrise was on its way, so I decided to head back to my hotel room. Oh, I wanted to... I guess I couldn't see Heath anywhere. It had been an interesting evening, although it was hard to believe my 6th night as a vampire was already ending. Yet here I was, steadily adapting to the new world around me, changing in ways I couldn't yet understand. As I made my way towards the hotel elevator, ready to head back to my room... Oh, excuse me, but you look like just the woman I wanted to see. A lilting voice suddenly called out behind me. Hey, Heath! I turned to see Heath sauntering up, smiling delightedly, a cigarette dangling between his fingertips. What a coincidence. You look like the man I wanted to see. Though maybe it's not such a coincidence. Maybe it's fate. He took a long drag from his cigarette, gazing intently at me as he exhaled a delicate stream of smoke. I had a good reason to find you and beyond just wanted to talk to you again, of course. A good lesson opportunity just came up. It won't be as fun as lounging in a hot tub, but you might find it a little more useful. Oh, I was hoping for something exciting again. I'm listening. I was hoping for something exciting again. Oh, you can trust me to keep things as exciting as I can, though I have a feeling this one might get a little too exciting. What does that mean? He trailed off briefly, but soon cleared his throat and continued. Now this lesson. Tomorrow night, there's going to be a meeting between a few Ascari and Golgotha representatives at my bar, Saturnalia. I suppose you can call it a last attempt to reach an agreement. Charisse is trying to calm things down before more people get hurt. Heath paused for a good few seconds, his eyes flickering between my face and the ground by my feet. I volunteered to oversee things, and I asked Charisse if I could bring you along. She seemed very happy with the idea. I think she sees a lot of potential in you, Valkii. I do too. Thank you, Heath. That means a lot to me. Though sometimes I wonder if you're too sweet for your own good. He sighed gently, although I couldn't tell if it was playful, admiring, or somewhere in between. Well, as much as I hate to say it, I've got to head out for another errand. Maybe for the best, or else I don't want to listen to you until sunrise. It's sunrise in literally not long. But if you can, could you come out by 9 or 10 tomorrow? I'd like to chat with you a little more before the meeting starts. Especially since you're much more interested than politics. Oh, I didn't mean to say that out loud. Agreed, I'd much rather talk to you than play diplomat. Sometimes I wonder if you're too good to be true. With a wistful smile, Heath reached out to lightly touch my arm, like a gentler, more uncertain version of a hug. Until tomorrow, Valkii. Sleep well. I don't know if I want to say that middle one. It's just like, sometimes it's just like too much, you know? Sweet dreams, hopefully they're of me. He broke into a I guess we have like a little playful thing going on, so I can just like kind of... I can dig that. He broke into a playful grin as he passed by me, glancing over his shoulder before stepping through the revolving door. I returned to my room feeling at least somewhat satisfied. But as I flicked off the light, settling into the cozy darkness of sleep, I remembered I had a human in the adjoining room. Somewhere in my mind, an uneasiness began to shift. In the middle of a peaceful dream about horses, I wonder fucking why. I suddenly jerked awake. The clock read 10:30 p.m. Apparently, I slept so well that even an alarm couldn't wake me. Some things didn't change, alive or dead. Dressing myself hastily, I hurried downstairs and out towards the street. It was a nice night, and I probably could have walked to Saturnalia if I'd left sooner, but I didn't want to be late. Oh, you already are late. He said 9 or 10. I hailed a cab and relaxed in the back seat, watching the city lights flicker by my window. For some reason, as we rode down the street, I had the odd sense that I was being watched. By whom or what, I had no idea. Definitely not the cabbie, who was loudly singing along to the Bayside Boys version of Macarena on the radio. But I couldn't shake the feeling that a pair of eyes was following me, observing me distantly. Okay. Outside Saturnalia, I paid the driver and approached the bar, glancing around briefly. After you, a well-dressed woman who happened to reach the door at the same time politely held it open for me. No, after you. Oh. I reached out to hold the door instead, and the lady let out a soft laugh before nodding her thanks. Might as well be polite, right? A louder chatter than usual filled the warmly lit bar. Oh, my leg. I desperately needed to shift in my seat. As my eyes scanned the crowd, I noticed a few familiar faces. The same Golgotha who'd been at the parking garage with Randall and some tougher-looking Ascari from the hotel. They seemed to recognize me too, judging from their long, scrutinizing stares. Why are you scrutinizing me? The meeting didn't look like it had started yet, so I decided to search around for Heath. I quickly spotted him off by himself, lingering behind the bar, watching an old movie on TV, but he wasn't really paying any attention to it. His gaze looked distant, slightly unfocused, as if he were in a world of his own. Even when I approached him, he still didn't notice me. With that far-off look in his eyes, he rolled an unlit cigarette between his fingertips, circling it against his thumb and forefinger over and over. Kicked the back of his leg. For a moment, a relaxed, even blissful expression drifted over his face. But he quickly jerked away, turning to face me with a startled gasp. Valkii. I didn't see you coming, I'm sorry. He looked very lost in thought. Oh, I might have been. Not about anything that would surprise you, I'm sure. He smiled at me innocently, or more accurately, with a playful mockery of innocence. But in all honesty, I'm glad you came, Valkii. I was starting to get a little nervous, to be honest. He paused, biting his lower lip hesitantly, eyes flicking towards the Golgotha in the corner. It's hard to predict how they'll bargain, and well, I always feel like Golgotha can read my mind. It's hard to play diplomacy games if your cards are already exposed. You'll be fine, Heath. I can step in if you need me. Thank you, Valkii. It's not like this is my first time, it just doesn't ever seem to get any easier, especially not when the stakes are as high as they are. I was never good at bartering or confrontations either, a pushover. Yeah, well, stake him right in the heart with your diplomatic skills. Oh wow, that was an interesting joke. He chuckled, shaking his head affectionately. If it seems like I'm worrying too much, I'm sorry. It's just I get very passionate about things. Before I went on set, my mother would always say to me, when you really believe in a character, you're not putting yourself in them, they're coming out of you. That's why I try to completely put myself into everything I do, because when it becomes a part of your identity, when it's not just a job or a cause or a hobby, you can find true meaning in it. And we all need meaning to get us through life. I think you're right, our passions make life worth living. I couldn't agree with you more, they're essential to life, and I'm sure you must have plenty of passions yourself as another Ascari. Ooh, I don't know about this. I feel like I'm setting myself up for getting fucked over. Of course I get attached to a lot of things easily. He nodded in understanding, gazing at me admiringly. You know, Valkii, if this meeting goes well, you and I might be heroes. None of us, well, the Golgotha and Ascari at least, want to see any more bloodshed. A compromise between the Golgotha and us could lead to a treaty with the Mavar, and we could say we helped make that happen. You're right, this might be the key towards peaceful end to the war. Heath seemed to practically glow at the idea, reaching up to trail a fingertip lightly along his cross. Charisse, Marcus, even Randall, I think, would thank us for it. I don't want to disappoint them, or you. You could never disappoint me, Heath. I don't know about that, Valkii. Despite his modest response, he didn't try to hide the delighted glimmer in his eyes, biting gently on the tip of his thumb. Excuse me. One of the Ascari came up to us, clearing his throat. The Golgotha have informed me they'd like to begin the meeting. Heath glanced at me, a hopeful smile twitching onto his lips, maybe to reassure himself more than me. Smile warmly back at him. When I returned the smile, Heath brightened visibly, biting his lower lip to keep his own smile from widening. We followed the Askari towards the center of the room, where the group of Golgotha were already waiting. Why, hello, Valkii. Oh, hello. I don't remember you. As Heath and I approached the emissary, the emissary bowed politely to me, one hand holding his white hat. Your first appearance at the parking garage was quite impressively bold, if I may say so. But it was more of a desperate fluke, or are you truly so delightfully reckless on a regular basis? You have to find that out for yourself. What a wonderfully mysterious thing to say. Ah, that reminds me. Since you're new to our delightful urban underworld, I should introduce myself. My name is Zhang. I don't know how to say it. I know that's seems Chinese, so I kind of fancy knowing how to say that. Let me see if I can do this how I want.
Zhang.
Zhang.
Zhang. Zhang.
Zhang. That's so fucking loud, but okay. And you are Heath, yes? Zhang, I'm just gonna say Zhang. I'm sorry. I don't know. Blah. Glanced over at Heath, a slow smirk coiling on his lips. Oh, but you look slightly uncomfortable over there. There isn't a draft on your side, is there? Heath brushed some of the hair from his forehead, then reached to light his cigarette. No, I'm fine, thank you. I see. The Golgotha's shadowed eyes flicked between Heath and me, narrowing slowly into contented slits. Well, shall we get to the nitty-gritty of our negotiations? I'm happy to say we are quite willing to aid the Askari against the Mavar uprising, in exchange for a few simple amendments to Miss Locke's enforced rules. The Askari agent standing near us stiffened. He still wore a cordial, neutral expression, but he obviously didn't trust Zhang one bit. Firstly, we don't believe the taking of blood pets should be limited or bound by rules. We view it as very impractical and unfair infringement of our rights, especially in a crowded vampiric city such as Los Angeles. He wriggled one finger as he spoke, like we were a classroom of delinquents who needed to be lectured. We also wished to see the arbitrary restrictions on turning mortals completely nullified. For after all, it is quite a core part of our natures and responsibility we should be trusted with. Two very reasonable requests, wouldn't you agree? His gaze drifted across the Askari before finally coming to land on me, his lips suddenly jerking up into a sharp, expectant grin. For whatever reason, he seemed more interested in my approval than in Heath's, even though I wasn't a negotiator here. You want all restrictions on blood pets and turning removed? That is precisely it. Your phrasing suggests a little displeasure, but I do hope that isn't the case. Heath straightened beside me, leaning forward with intention to speak, although he hesitated for a moment. I think everyone here knows that your motives aren't that innocent. We don't want the war to continue, of course not, but we don't want another one to start right after it either. Oh, I don't doubt it, Mr. Heath. Everyone here is also aware of your extensive selfless desire for peace, I'm sure. Zhang's tone was so cheerfully polite that it veered towards mockery, but for whatever reason it seemed to cut right into Heath, and he didn't try to defend himself. However, to address your concerns, you are quite right in some respects. Our intentions here are not only for more personal freedoms. Zhang pressed his lips together solemnly, gesturing to all the room with one hand. More importantly, we want to find better ways to deal with our condition, not simply to continue bandaging an ever-bleeding wound, so to speak. Research and experimentation are necessary for this, and Miss Locke's current rules make things quite difficult in that regard. A newcomer like Valkii can surely feel the full brunt of our daily struggles, adjusting to our various curses, dealing with regular consumption of blood. For however much we'd like to pretend turning will only happen lawfully, the truth is mistakes inevitably happen, so why not focus making a better unlife for all of us, Zhang flashed a wide grin towards Heath, who looked visibly uncomfortable. After a long moment, Heath tentatively reached out to put a hand on my shoulder, his delicate fingers squeezing tightly. Valkii, do you think we should consider it? His barely audible murmur was rife with doubt. I know we can't fully trust them, but I can't help but feel like it's better than the alternative. If you agree to those terms, I think you're playing with fire. I know, but if we don't, and the Golgotha join the Mavar instead? It just doesn't feel like we have much of a choice. Heath exhaled a quiet sigh, rubbing worriedly at his forehead. I've never seen him so tense before, which made me wonder if there wasn't some subtext beneath all of the dialogue so far. Excuse me. Zhang interrupted us, calling out airily with a little wave. Now, while I certainly respect your right to consult among yourselves, I think this occasion presents us with a most unique opportunity to act objectively and in the best interests of all Los Angeles vampires. Excuse me? Zhang chuckled at Heath's confusion, playfully shaking his head. I'm sure we all value your opinions, Mr. Heath, but let's not forget the very important viewpoint Valkii brings to the table. After all, despite being on your side, she can presumably offer an unbiased judgment as a vampire relatively new to our state of affairs. The Golgotha around Zhang nodded in agreement, like this was an obvious, very sensible course of action. And so, now that she's aware of our respective intentions, why not let her speak for you? Unless, of course, you don't even trust the intentions of your own organization's members and are retaining them unwillingly. The cigarette fell from between Heath's fingers. He hastily placed a shoe over it to mask the action as intentional, biting his lower lip and tucking back more of his hair. Well, while Valkii is an artificial representative here, I would be happy to let her voice her thoughts. Excellent, how very progressive of you. Zhang beamed at us delightedly, his attention shifting back to me the next moment. Okay, my thoughts right now are that I'm never going to be able to get into the nitty-gritty of why I don't think what he's saying is okay, and like the implications of what he's saying could be twisted. Like his words could be twisted to mean something else, like they want to take blood pets, but does that mean are they taking them willingly, or do they view humans as subhuman and it doesn't matter if they have to come willingly or not? Like, and turning people, I feel like turning, like my character wasn't turned willingly, but I feel like everyone should be turned willingly to some extent. Like, you can't just infringe on humans because you're a vampire. You need to like coexist with them even in secrecy. So I do feel like these rules need to be there. Like, you can't just take humans because you're like you're an apex predator, you know what I mean? I know that's like the food chain and obviously they think it's fine, but the fact of the matter is that vampires were once human. You should still be able to empathize with that. Just because you get like more power than them doesn't mean, I know, it's whatever. Yeah, I could feel everyone staring at me, from the hesitant scrutinizing eyes of the Ascari to the eager eyes of the Golgotha. Then what are your thoughts, my fine Ascari colleague? I don't know. I don't trust them. But it would be bad if they went to the Mavar, obviously. So I'm going to say this one first. We should negotiate more, but I think a deal is for the best. And a not unreasonable conclusion. I noticed a number of Ascari nodding in approval, a few of them even clapping to show their support. In that case, shall we... At that moment, the bar's front door flew open. A large group spilled inside, shouting the second they laid eyes on us. Whoa, whoa, what kind of fun's been happening here? At the front of the rough, angry-looking group stood... Well, I see all my favorite people came to plan my surprise birthday party, and man, I'm touched. But you know, when you're planning a surprise, you gotta be real careful about where you do it. The group of Mavar around Randall hollered and hissed, staring at us hungrily. 'Cause you never know when the birthday boy might walk in. Mr. Randall, fate unites us again, Sure does, pal. Fate also sent me to break up this little love fest you guys have going on here, since, you know, I don't like to feel left out. Beside me, Heath placed a hand on my shoulder again, this time to protectively pull my body slightly behind his own. Oh, what's this? The movement caught Randall's attention, and he quickly turned away from Zhang to face Heath and me. Valkii? What are you... Wait, you with... He trailed off, his nose reflexively wrinkling in disgust. For a moment, he looked almost disappointed, studying me with a dark frown. Heath, huh? You have a problem with Heath? A lot of problems, but if I start listening, we'd be here until sunrise. His voice quickly turned dismissive, and he waved a hand as if to brush away the topic. You know, I'm more curious about what's got the pretties and the crazies all in one place. Because the way I remember it, the spa's supposed to be neutral ground, not an Ascari meeting room just because it's run by one. The war has changed a lot of things, Randall. Heath finally spoke up, forcing a loudness into his voice that didn't really seem to belong there. When you're leading a rebellion, you can't expect us to just lie down and be executed. Who the hell's talking about executing anybody? That sounds more like something Queen Bitch would pull, or like one of the fucking reasons we started fighting back in the first place. Yeah, it sure fucking does. As Randall snarled back at Heath, the Mavar around him shouted in agreement. I noticed that a lot of them were openly carrying weapons, just like the Ascari and the Golgotha. Whatever accusations you make, more violence isn't going to solve anything. If we could just find a way to peacefully... Yeah, sure, except we all know how that ends up. Ugh, listen, you know I don't want a bloodbath either. He rubbed his forehead in frustration, turning a sharp gaze from Heath to me. But one of you needs to tell Queen Bitch that she's got to put her money where her mouth is, and fucking step down. Is that so goddamn much to ask? If Charisse leaves everything, I don't know, because I don't have enough information to know everything. Yes, I believe her rules are in place. Could some of them change somewhat? Sure, but so why isn't that like a question? Why can't we be like, maybe we should look at the rules and see what needs changing, like to at least help accommodate other people? You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm gonna save it. Charisse leaves, everything will just get more chaotic. Sure, it might, but maybe that's how this city's supposed to be. No leaders, just every vampire for themselves. I think you of all people, Valkii, would understand that after your leader sent you on a goddamn suicide mission. Who is this girl, Randall? A Mavar I'd never seen before gestured scornfully towards me with her handgun. It sounds like she's just another... Sorry about that. I had to order food. She's pointing a gun at Valkii. I forgot this was the random shit that was going on. Okay. Valkii, watch out! Before I knew what was happening, an Ascari fired a warning shot towards the Mavar girl. Ah, what the? Oh, wonderful. And just like that, all hell suddenly broke loose. Take this, you fucking Ascari pussies! You're all morons, die! All these insults are just mwah. What the hell is... Fuck. Valkii. In the midst of all the sudden gunfire, Heath dived towards me. Ooh, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna do something with him, obviously. But let's drop down and pull him with me. First, grabbing Heath's arm, I dropped down to the floor, pulling him down with me. Kept my head as low as I could, crawling towards the safety of the bar, making sure Heath was next to me. Oh, cute. Shattered glass and screams tore through the air. Okay, I'm probably gonna do this one, but I just want to see what the other option gets me because I'm curious. Grab his hand and run. I snatched up Heath's hand, yanking him along as I darted for the safety of the bar. We ducked down beneath the counter, crashing down. Okay, so it's essentially the same thing. Shattered glass and screams tore through the air. In between the gunfire, I heard dull ripping and thudding sounds, claws raking flesh. Valkii. Heath held on to me as tightly as he could. I want to get rid of... No, I wanted to get rid of the thing so I could actually see the thing, but I never know what button that is. His body was practically shielding mine, but he squeezed me like I was the one protecting and comforting him, not the other way around. I'll fucking kill you, come here. Oh, I see, he's got like... his hand's on my arm, and he's like in front of me a little bit. Lay down and die, all you fucking fascist pigs. You need to burn alive. Burn, 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 nobody'd cry. I didn't know who was yelling what, or winning, or losing. It just sounded like chaos. Like everyone was losing. Valkii. He squeezed his eyes shut, digging his nails against my arm. I curled my arms around Heath, pulling him into a tight embrace. He clung onto me without reservation, hugging me even more closely than I hugged him. You're making a horrible mistake, Randall. You can't hide from him forever, you know. Ha 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 ha. Shut the fuck up, you goddamn lunatic. I recognized two voices through all the shouting. Randall's and Zhang's. Zhang's? Remember. Acting as if our fate is our own. You're quite the fool, aren't you? Where are you? I'm gonna find you, you fucking... And then their cries were drowned out again, swallowed in the fight. I want to see the picture. How do I get rid of this? I want to see the picture. And I'm sure it's the same still, but I want to see the full thing. A bullet whizzed over our heads, smashing into the bottles nearby. Crimson liquid gushed out in a dark red torrent over the floorboards. Jerking away from the spreading puddle, Heath curled more tightly against my side. I could feel his whole body trembling like a leaf battered by the wind. Stroke his hair. I ran a hand through his soft white hair, trying to soothe him as gunfire sprayed around us. He jerked under my touch at first, but soon pressed against it almost desperately. Soon enough, the fight began to die down. I heard the door slam open and shut, and from the thudding of footsteps, it seemed like the bloodshed was heading outside. Was it finally over? I raised my head just in time to see the last vampire scrambling for the exit, slipping in a pool of someone's blood before catching himself and stumbling through the door. Careful, Valkii. Beside me, Heath slowly rose to his feet, eyes darting around to scan for anyone left behind. Surprisingly enough, there were no bodies on the floor, but from the large amounts of blood, I had to wonder if they hadn't been dragged out. I can't believe this, really. Heath shook his head in disbelief. He seemed almost unable to process what had just happened. I can't believe it either. It's just so surreal. Heath clutched his face with one hand, staring at the bloodied floor through his fingers. And then, when his gaze slowly moved back to meet mine, he rushed up to me, throwing his arms around me in an embrace. Valkii, I'm so glad you're all right. I'm happy you are too. I was so worried. Were you really? About me? His voice trembled with emotion. He squeezed me tightly, nuzzling a little against my shoulder. After a long few moments, he stepped back from me with some reluctance. You were so quick thinking and calm back there, pulling me to safety like that. I owe you my life. I wasn't about to let you get hurt. This cat just keeps coming in. My remark seemed to make him positively glow for a second, his eyes sparkling at me. I think you should head back to the hotel as soon as you can, back to safety. I'll call for some help cleaning things up and securing the bar. We have to make sure the police are dealt with. I'll tell Charisse about everything later. As he spoke, the traces of excitement in his voice slowly faded. He seemed conscious of it, quickly putting on a small smile to compensate. I don't think I should leave you here alone. Please don't worry about me, Valkii. I'd feel much better if I knew you were safe at the hotel. If you stay here a moment, I'll call you a taxi. At Heath's insistence, I let him phone in a cab for me. It pulled up outside before long, and Heath escorted me to the door, sending me off with a slightly too encouraging smile. I can't say I didn't try to stay. As I climbed into the cab and set off towards the hotel, rain poured down around us like someone was emptying buckets down from the rooftops. Thunder rumbled in the distance, although the muffled sounds almost sounded like cannon fire. Even by the time I reached the hotel, hurrying back into the empty lobby, I felt like I could see the blood-splattered bar in the back of my mind. And Heath. It was hard to tell how the fight had affected him, but something about his last words felt withdrawn, evasive. He'd contact me soon enough, no doubt. Though I had to wonder if tonight's fallout wouldn't leave a lasting scar. There was nothing I could do. I'm pretty sure there was literally nothing I could do to stop that. My eyes fluttered open, and I will see you in the next one.